أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأني أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد. So as you've seen and as the brothers mentioned, today's talk is about the origins of hip-hop. And hip-hop obviously today is a global phenomenon, especially amongst the youth. First I'd like to apologize for the video. I actually forgot, I did a video at home, I forgot it, but this was from YouTube, that's why it paused every so often. So basically it's about the origins of hip-hop. And why I talk about the origins of hip-hop is because hip-hop is the culture of the youth. Hip-hop isn't just about rap music, hip-hop is more than rap music, it's clothes, it's graffiti, it's a culture. And when I was growing up, it was the black kids used to listen to hip-hop. It was the black kids used to start listening to, you know, they said the raga and reggae and hip-hop. And some of the Bengali kids also used to listen to the hip-hop. They used to roll their jeans up, you know what I mean, and all this stuff, listen to hip-hop. But it's mainly the black kids listen to hip-hop. But then afterwards, hip-hop started to cross over into Asian culture, and then you have people like Apache Indian, Balisagu, and there was other Asian hip-hop artists that was, I remember when I was young, I used to listen to Apache Indian and other hip-hop artists, Asian and non-Asian. But then today, as you see on the streets, everyone listens to hip-hop. The white kid, the black kid, the brown kid, the yellow kid, the freshy kid, you know what I mean, the one that just came in yesterday after getting his immigration visa, you know, they all listen to hip-hop. And they listen to hip-hop back in their countries as well. And hip-hop is a global phenomenon. And you've seen the kids, maybe you are some of them, bopping down the streets, you know what I mean, with their Nokia phone, blurring out 50 Cent, blurring out, some water please, blurring out, you know what I mean, Eminem, Soldier Boy, walking down the streets, you know what I mean, as if they're walking in the streets of Bronx, as if they're walking down the streets of Brooklyn, and some bad man. And they're all listening to hip-hop. And then you got your British hip-hop now as well. You know, you got your British garage, you got your grime, and this, you know, the British hip hop scene is quite big now. Got a lot of grime. Listen to a lot of the radios talking about grime, and this is the hip hop culture that everyone's listening to. These people are big, major stars. I remember I was watching an interview with 50 Cent one time, and he's saying that he's a corporation. He's not a man, and he goes, "I'm a corporation." You know what I mean? I've got my music, I've got my clothes, I've got my trainers, I've got all this stuff. So he's saying that he's bigger than just a rap artist, he's a corporation. This is how big hip-hop is. And all the youth, all the Muslim youth, the disbelieving youth, they all listen to hip-hop. It is the culture of the youth. But when you listen to hip-hop nowadays, what do they all talk about? They talk about the same old stuff. If you watch the videos about the same old stuff. It's about the girls. It's about drinking Cristal, which is a expensive type of champagne. It's about the rollers. Check out my car. Look how big the engine is in my car. Look how people I fly with. Look at all this. I'm big. Look at my chains. Look at my bling bling. Look at my teeth. Look at my chain. You know what I mean? Mr. Chi chains and all this stuff. That's what it's all about. Hip hop is all about that nowadays. You know what I mean? About showing that who you are. It's about vanity. That I'm number one. This is what everyone is listening to nowadays. But as we've seen in the video, hip-hop was far from that at the beginning. That's what hip-hop has become. It's the 30th anniversary of hip-hop. Hip-hop started off in 1979 in the ghettos of New York. In 1979, and we're now in 2009. So it's the 30th anniversary of hip-hop. And back in the early days of hip hop, it was speeching over, DJs. So they were speeching about a lot of things. They were speaking about music. Yes, they were speaking about girls and having fun and all this stuff. But they're also speaking about their social ills. Because where was America back in 1979? It was just came out of the civil rights movements. The civil rights movements of the 60s. And I know you're too young to remember that, and so am I. The civil rights movements of the 60s was people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you had the Black Panthers. You have a lot of people fighting for their rights, especially the blacks, because they were second-class citizens. They had to sit at the back of the bus. They couldn't go to schools with white kids. They lived in their ghettos. They had no rights. There's park benches saying no blacks allowed. Everything, no blacks allowed here, no blacks allowed there. They were second-class citizens in their own country after being stolen from Africa 300 years earlier and made slaves. And the country that now freed them, they were still not first-class citizens. So there was a lot of civil rights movements, people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and as I mentioned, the Black Panthers. And then that all died away. There was rights given to the blacks, but the black situations never really changed. Never really changed. They still lived in their ghettos. They introduced this thing in America called the projects, where the housing projects. And the blacks lived in their ghettos in New York, in LA, South Central, in Compton, and Watts, and all these other parts. So they started to talk about other stuff, social justice. One of the early hip-hop tunes was called The Message. And it was talking about how bad life was in the ghettos. Why people go crazy there. Because it was a terrible thing. And they were saying, look, this is how we live. So they started talking about justice. This was by Grandmaster Flash and the Famous Five. These are one of the founders of hip-hop. And as you saw, KRS-One, the guy that was speaking mostly there, he was one of the founders of hip-hop as well. And then in 1979 he was born. Then in the mid-80s, late 80s, hip-hop started to get political. Hip-hop, they started to get political. The young black youths that were living in this ghetto, they started talking about politics. And you had a group come out called NWA. And NWA is the polite word of, Negroes with an attitude. And it was people like Ice Cube, you might have seen some of his films. You had Dr. Dre, and you had a couple of others form this Negroes with an attitude. And one of the famous tunes came out was F the Police. And he was talking about police brutality and effing the police, killing police. It was shocked. I remember when I was young, I went to my friend's house, we had the vinyl, listening to this. It was something, you know what I mean? Hip-hop was getting now more political. And then you had people like Public Enemy. And Public Enemy was huge. The other guy that was speaking there in the bookshop, he was one of the co-founders of Public Enemy. And they had their tune, Fight the Power. And all their music was really political. They said, fight the power. Look at all this, police brutality. Look at the rights of the blacks. It was revolutionary hip-hop music. This is the origins of hip-hop. You also had people like Ice-T. Who knows Ice-T? Some of you know Ice-T. Ice-T was a bit political as well. He had a track called Race War. He said either we have a revolution or we have a race war. He's talking about blacks fighting whites, killing whites. It was really getting political. Because it was what? It was the people who the world forgot in the ghettos of black America starting to speak out about all the problems, about justice, about the system. They started to speak out. And hip-hop was becoming more and more popular. You had NWA, as I mentioned, Public Enemy, Ice Cube, Ice-T. They were all speaking this thing. And it was growing. It was a real big movement amongst the blacks. But obviously, they can't accept that. The powers that be, they think this music is getting too political. It's going against the status quo. It's starting to speak about things, about justice, about the reality of things. And surprise, surprise, hip-hop takes a twist. Having all these political messages. Even Tupac. people that listen to Tupac,